Hello, friend. Welcome to Science for Sleep. Whether you have spent many evenings here or have only just arrived, this is a quiet place to slow down, learn something gentle, and let the day gradually fade into the distance. Tonight, we are looking at something easy to miss. A cat is resting at the end of a sofa. Its eyes are half closed, and its paws are tucked beneath its chest. You say its name from across the room. The cat does not stand, meow, or turn its head, but one ear rotates toward you. That movement may last less than a second, yet it tells us something important. The cat heard a sound, located its general direction, and changed its body in response. What it did not do was come when called. Those are not the same thing. When people say that a cat ignored them, they often combine several different steps into one. The ears must first detect the sound. The brain must then separate it from the hum of a refrigerator, passing traffic, or a television nearby. The cat may recognize the voice, recognize its name, decide whether the call matters, and finally choose whether moving is worth the effort. It can complete every early step and still remain exactly where it is. If you enjoy these quiet journeys, you're welcome to subscribe. And if it feels natural, to leave a comment sharing where you're listening from tonight. It helps others find this calm corner of science, one sleepy listener at a time. This difference between noticing and obeying has made cats unusually difficult animals to study. A dog may walk toward a researcher, touch a target, or choose between two containers. A cat may inspect the same equipment and then sit beside it. Researchers therefore watch movements so small that an owner might not count them as responses. They watch the ears, head, eyes, tail, whiskers, and posture. A cat can rotate each outer ear, called a pinna, toward a sound without moving the rest of its body. Researchers may record whether grooming stops, the pupils widen, or the body shifts from loose rest to quiet alertness. In a study published in 2013, 20 domestic cats heard recordings of unfamiliar people calling their names. After several unfamiliar voices, the recording changed to the cat's owner. 15 cats showed the response pattern needed for comparison, and many reacted more strongly when the familiar voice appeared. Most did not meow or walk toward the hidden speaker. Their response was more often a movement of the head or ears. The owner was not visible, and no food was offered. The cat still detected something different about that final voice. This matters because visible behavior is the last link in a longer chain. Sound waves enter the ear canal and vibrate the eardrum. 3 tiny middle ear bones pass those vibrations inward. The inner ear changes the movement into electrical signals that travel along nerves to the brain. There, the sound can be compared with patterns stored from earlier experience. Only after detection, recognition, and evaluation does the cat decide whether to act. A still cat can therefore be processing sound, memory, and choice, while revealing very little of that work. This does not mean every twitch proves deep understanding. An ear may turn toward any sudden noise. A pupil may widen because the light changed. A tail may move because the cat is irritated or adjusting its balance. One movement alone can have several explanations. Evidence becomes stronger when the same response appears repeatedly under controlled conditions. Researchers may keep the spoken word the same while changing the speaker. They may keep the speaker the same while changing the word. They may repeat several sounds until the cat responds less, then introduce one sound that should be familiar. If the cat's attention returns at that precise moment, chance becomes a less convincing explanation. The quiet cat on the sofa is therefore a useful place to begin. Hearing is not recognition. Recognition is not understanding. And understanding is not obedience. Between the sound of a name and the movement of a paw, several hidden decisions may already have taken place. To discover what a cat truly notices, we need ways of asking questions that do not depend on the cat answering in the way a human expects. That gap between what a cat knows and what it chooses to show creates a difficult problem for researchers. A person can describe what they heard. A cat cannot explain whether a voice sounded familiar or whether a spoken word carried meaning. Scientists must therefore work backward from behavior. A simple task can easily become tangled with other influences. A cat asked to touch a target may understand the instruction and still remain seated. Its last meal may have been recent, making a food reward less interesting. The room may smell unfamiliar. A strange person, a closed door, or a slippery floor can change how willing the animal feels to move. Training history also matters. One cat may have spent years learning to follow a hand signal. Another may have lived just as long without ever being asked to perform a deliberate action. A test based only on successful performance could make the trained cat appear more intelligent, even when both animals notice the same information. Researchers often avoid that problem by measuring attention instead. One common method is called habituation. Habituation is the gradual weakening of a response when the same kind of event happens again and again. A clock may seem loud when it first begins ticking in a quiet room. After several minutes, the sound fades into the background because the brain has learned that it carries little new information. A similar change can be measured in cats. Suppose a hidden speaker plays several unfamiliar words spoken in the same voice. At first, the cat may rotate an ear, lift its head, or stop grooming. As the sounds repeat, those reactions often grow smaller. The cat has not lost its hearing. Its attention has simply declined because the pattern has become familiar. Researchers can then introduce a different sound. The new sound might be the cat's name, its owner's voice, or another carefully chosen recording. If the ears turn again or the head rises, attention has returned. This renewed response is called dishabituation. It suggests that the cat detected a meaningful difference between the repeated sounds and the new one. No maze is required. The cat does not need to press a button or walk toward a bowl. A small rebound in attention can provide the useful measurement. Another method depends on expectation. Researchers first allow the cat to learn that one event reliably predicts another. A spoken name might be followed by the photograph of one familiar cat. After several matching trials, the sound and image form a repeated pair. The pattern is then broken. The same name is played, but a different face appears. Scientists measure how long the cat looks at the screen. A longer look during the mismatch may show that the result violated an expectation. The cat appeared prepared for one image and received another. This approach is often called an expectancy violation test. It is also used with human infants who cannot describe their thoughts with language. Looking time must still be interpreted carefully. A longer stare does not reveal an exact sentence inside the cat's head. It shows that something about the event held attention longer than the comparison event. Researchers must rule out simpler explanations, including differences in brightness, movement, sound volume, and novelty. The cat's condition can also shape the result. Fatigue may shorten every response. Hunger can make a food task unusually powerful. Stress may cause freezing, hiding, or an attempt to leave. An owner's presence can make one cat calmer while distracting another. Age, early social experience, and individual temperament add further variation. Some cats investigate almost anything placed before them. Others watch from a distance and need far more time. A failed trial, therefore, has several possible meanings. The cat may not have detected the difference. It may have noticed and lost interest. Discomfort may have prevented a visible response. This is why studies usually compare groups, repeat trials, record behavior on video, and use clear scoring rules. The evidence also arrives in levels. Discrimination means the cat detected that two signals differed. Association means it learned that one signal tends to accompany another event. Expectation appears when a broken pairing produces surprise. Memory allows information to remain useful after time has passed. Human-like conceptual understanding would require much stronger evidence than any single ear movement or longer glance. Careful experiments cannot translate every feline thought. They can make hidden processes visible enough to test. With those methods in place, several human voices can enter a room through a speaker, while every person remains beyond the cat's sight. Inside that carefully controlled setup, the first useful change can be very small. A cat rests in a familiar room, where the floor, furniture, and surrounding smells are already known. Its owner has stepped away and remains out of sight. A hidden speaker begins playing recordings. One unfamiliar person calls the cat's name. A second stranger follows, then a third. The words remain familiar because each person is saying the same name. Only the voice changes. As the recordings continue, the cat may lift its head at first, then respond less strongly to each new stranger. An ear turns for a moment. The eyes open slightly. Soon, the body settles again. Then the owner's voice comes through the speaker. The cat's attention rises. Its head may turn more clearly, or both ears may point toward the sound. This was the basic pattern examined in a study published in 2013. 20 domestic cats took part in the research. The testing occurred inside each cat's own home, which reduced some of the stress that can appear in an unfamiliar laboratory. Researchers played recordings of 3 strangers calling the cat's name, followed by a recording of the owner doing the same. 15 of the cats showed the response pattern needed for a clear comparison. Their reactions weakened across the unfamiliar voices and then increased when the owner's voice appeared. The cats did not usually answer with a meow. They rarely walked toward the hidden speaker. Most of the useful responses came from movements of the ears and head. Those quiet movements showed that the final voice stood apart from the others. A human voice carries several layers of identifying information. The most basic is called fundamental frequency. This is the main rate at which the vocal cords vibrate, and it strongly affects whether a voice sounds high or low. A second feature is timbre, the quality that makes two people sound different even when they speak at the same pitch. Timbre is shaped by the throat, mouth, tongue, teeth, and nasal passages. These structures filter the sound produced by the vocal cords and give each voice its familiar texture. Rhythm also matters. Some people speak in short bursts. Others hold vowels longer or leave wider pauses between words. An accent changes the way vowels are formed and where stress falls within a word. Consonants have their own timing as well. The brief release of air in a sound such as a T or K can arrive with slightly different force and speed from one speaker to another. Habitual intonation adds another pattern. Intonation is the rise and fall of pitch across a phrase. One owner may call a cat's name with a gentle rise at the end. Another may lower the final sound. After months or years of exposure, these details become part of a stable acoustic pattern. The auditory system receives the voice as a changing wave of pressure moving through the air. The inner ear turns that movement into nerve signals. Different groups of brain cells respond to pitch, timing, and sound quality. Repeated exposure strengthens the recognition of features that often occur together. When the pattern returns, the cat can match it with earlier experience before seeing the person who produced it. This kind of recognition does not require the cat to understand the spoken name. The owner could say an unfamiliar word and still sound familiar. Voice recognition concerns the identity of the speaker. Word recognition depends on the sound sequence being spoken. The 2013 study therefore supports a careful conclusion. Cats can discriminate their owners' voices from unfamiliar human voices using sound alone. The findings do not show that cats understand every sentence directed toward them. They also do not prove that a cat always prefers the familiar voice or feels motivated to approach it. Recognition can happen without movement across the room. For the resting cat, the owner is temporarily absent from sight. The familiar voice still carries enough information to identify one particular person. That person can remain acoustically present through pitch, rhythm, and the small habits built into ordinary speech. Within that familiar voice, certain sound patterns may have gathered meanings of their own. A familiar voice can carry many different words. To find out whether one sound pattern stands apart, researchers need to keep the speaker steady while changing what the speaker says. That approach led to a study published in 2019 involving domestic cats living in private homes and cat cafes in Japan. Each cat heard a sequence of recorded words through a speaker. The first 4 were general nouns, or in some trials, the names of other cats living in the same place. The 5th sound was the listener's own name. Researchers selected comparison words with features similar to the cat's name. They considered the number of syllables, the position of the strongest stress, and the general pattern of pitch across the word. These controls mattered because a cat might react to a sharp change in sound without recognizing the word itself. A 2-syllable name spoken after 4 much longer words would stand out for a simple acoustic reason. The experiment was designed to make the cat's own name less obviously different. As the first words played, many cats gradually responded less. An ear that turned toward the speaker during the first recording might remain still by the 4th. The head could lower again as the repeated human speech became less important. When the cat's own name arrived, attention often returned. Some cats rotated their ears, others moved their heads or briefly paused what they were doing. That renewed response suggested that the final sound had been separated from the preceding words. The study included cats from ordinary households as well as cats living in cafes, where many animals and visitors shared the same rooms. Household cats showed especially clear evidence of distinguishing their names from general nouns. Some also separated their own names from the names of feline companions. The cafe cats produced less consistent results when the comparison involved other cats' names. Their environment may help explain the difference. A household cat may hear a small set of names used in stable ways each day. A cafe cat can live among dozens of animals, while unfamiliar visitors pronounce names differently or use them with uneven timing. The sound pattern becomes harder to connect with one reliable outcome. The researchers also changed the person speaking. In one condition, an unfamiliar voice pronounced the same sequence of words. Some household cats still showed renewed attention when their own names appeared. The exact pitch and vocal texture had changed, yet the important pattern remained recognizable. This suggests that a cat can learn features of the word that survive across different speakers. The vowels still arrive in the same order. Consonants create similar beginnings and endings. The number of syllables remains stable, along with much of the rhythm. Human listeners perform a similar task when they recognize one word spoken by a child, an older adult, or someone with a different accent. A cat's name also receives an unusual amount of practice. A person may say it several times in a single day. Across 10 years, even 5 repetitions per day would produce more than 18,000 exposures. Many cats hear their names far more often than that. Those repetitions are tied to events. The name may come before a bowl is placed on the floor. It can accompany a hand reaching down to stroke the cat. Sometimes it is followed by a door opening or a toy moving across the carpet. At other moments, the sound predicts interruption because the cat has climbed onto a counter or begun scratching furniture. The outcomes vary, but they share one feature. Human attention is about to turn toward the cat. Repeated association gives the name predictive value. The brain begins treating that phonetic sequence as a useful signal because it often arrives before something personally relevant happens. Recognition can remain even when the speaker changes because the learned pattern belongs to the word as well as to one familiar voice. The result still requires careful interpretation. A renewed ear movement shows that the cat discriminated its name from the comparison sounds. It also suggests that the name carries learned significance. The study does not reveal whether a cat thinks of the name as a symbol for its own identity. A human can reflect on a name as part of a personal history. The feline response may depend mainly on prediction, attention, and past consequences. Even within that careful boundary, the change is meaningful. One small piece of human speech has been pulled from the surrounding stream and stored as a special sound. Its effect comes partly from the word itself, though human speech also carries a changing melody around every word. Owners often raise their pitch, stretch certain vowels, and repeat short phrases when speaking directly to a cat. The melody surrounding a cat's name can carry almost as much information as the name itself. Many people change their voices automatically when speaking to a cat. Their pitch rises slightly. The distance between high and low notes becomes wider, creating a more animated sound. Words may be stretched, repeated, or spoken with slower emphasis. A full sentence such as, "Would you like to come into the kitchen?" may become a short phrase like "dinner time," followed by the cat's name. Scientists call this cat-directed speech. The term describes the vocal style people use when addressing cats rather than the particular words they choose. A similar change happens when adults speak to babies, although speech directed toward pets develops its own patterns. Recordings show that pet-directed voices often contain a higher average pitch and greater pitch variation than ordinary conversation between adults. The speaker may also use shorter phrases and clearer emotional emphasis. These changes create a signal that is easy to notice across a room. Researchers in France examined whether cats respond to this speaking style in a study published in 2022. 16 domestic cats took part. Each cat was tested inside its own home, where familiar furniture, smells, and hiding places reduced the disruption of the experiment. Recordings were played while the owner remained out of view. Some phrases had originally been spoken as though the person were talking to another adult. Other phrases had been spoken directly to the cat. The words included ordinary greetings and questions that could be delivered in either style. During one set of trials, the cat heard its owner's voice. Another set used the voice of an unfamiliar woman. The researchers recorded changes in behavior, including ear movement, head direction, tail activity, pupil size, movement around the room, and pauses in resting or grooming. A response could therefore appear without the cat approaching the speaker. When owners shifted from ordinary adult-directed speech into the style they normally used with their cats, the animal's attention increased. Some turned their ears or heads toward the recording. Others stopped moving or changed their position. When the owner's speech returned to an adult-directed style, attention tended to decline again. The stranger's recordings produced a different result. Changing from adult-directed to cat-directed speech did not create the same clear behavioral shift. A high voice alone was therefore not enough to explain the pattern. The familiar person and the familiar manner of speaking work together. This suggests that each cat may learn a vocal style connected to one particular relationship. An owner often uses that style immediately before touching the cat, offering food, opening a door, or beginning play. The cat hears the altered pitch while also seeing the person lean closer or extend a hand. Across months and years, these events form a repeated package. The vocal pattern begins to predict direct engagement. A feature called prosody carries much of this information. Prosody is the changing melody and rhythm of speech. It includes where the voice rises, how long a syllable lasts, which word receives emphasis, and how quickly the phrase is delivered. Two people can say exactly the same words while producing very different prosody. A flat, quiet, "come here," may sound unlike a bright version, with the cat's name stretched at the end. The dictionary meaning remains stable, while the social message changes. Familiarity helps the cat interpret that message. One owner may use a high rising tone before play. Another may lower their voice when offering calm physical contact. A third may repeat the cat's name whenever a meal is being prepared. The useful pattern develops through repeated interaction rather than following one universal formula. The human also adjusts over time. A sound that gains the cat's attention is likely to be used again. Phrases that receive no response may gradually disappear. Both participants influence which signals survive inside the relationship. Communication begins to take the shape of a small shared system, built from pitch changes, familiar timing, and thousands of ordinary encounters. Years of repetition could explain how that system becomes so precise. A more revealing test begins with sounds that carry no history at all, paired with images the cat has never seen before. The familiar patterns shared by a cat and its owner may take months or years to develop. A study published in 2024 examined what happens when that long history is removed. 31 domestic cats were presented with sounds they had never heard before and images that carried no established meaning inside their homes. Their owners recorded 2 invented words. One was parumo. The other was kararu. Neither word belonged to ordinary Japanese vocabulary, so the cats had no reason to connect it with food, affection, a room, or a familiar person. Each invented sound was paired with an animated picture shown on a laptop. One picture displayed a red or blue sun. The other showed Pegasus, the winged horse from Greek mythology. The image gently expanded and contracted on the screen, while the owner's recording played. Every trial lasted 9 seconds. During that short period, the assigned word was spoken 4 times. For one cat, parumo might always accompany the moving sun, while keraru accompanied Pegasus. Another cat could receive the opposite arrangement. Changing the assignments between animals helped prevent one image or word from carrying an accidental advantage. The researchers first repeated the matching pairs and measured how long each cat watched the screen. Early trials often drew greater attention because the sounds and moving images were new. Interest gradually declined as the same combinations appeared again. Most cats reached the study's habituation point after 4 trials. That meant they had experienced each sound-picture pair only twice. 2 9-second encounters linked parumo with one image. 2 more connected keraru with the other. The total exposure to each relationship was less than 20 seconds. Once attention had settled, the test changed. Some trials preserved the learned pairing. The familiar word still appeared with the same animated picture. Other trials switched the combinations. A sound previously connected with Pegasus now played, while the sun moved on the screen. The cat spent longer looking at the switched human speech pairings. Their attention also increased in ways that suggested the new combination did not fit the pattern formed only moments earlier. The words themselves remained unchanged. The pictures moved in the same way. Only the relationship between sound and image had been broken. This response suggests that the cats had rapidly bound each spoken pattern to its matching visual event. Binding is the brain's process of linking information that arrives together. When one sound repeatedly accompanies one picture, the nervous system begins treating the pair as a regular event. Hearing the sound can then prepare the animal for the image that usually follows with it. A switched pairing violates that short-lived expectation and becomes more interesting to watch. The experiment did not show that the cats understood parumo as a true name for Pegasus. Human words can be used across places, times, and situations, even when the object is absent. The cats demonstrated a faster and more basic ability, forming a new association between an auditory pattern and a visual pattern. A second experiment replaced the owner's voices with electronic sounds. Within that experiment, cats did not show a clear difference between switched and unchanged trials. The result requires careful handling. A direct statistical comparison between the voice experiment and the electronic sound experiment did not establish that cats learn only from human speech. Electronic tones may differ in familiarity, complexity, or social importance. More testing would be needed to separate those possibilities. The strongest conclusion remains narrow and useful. Cats can begin forming a new sound-image relationship after very little exposure, without food, rewards, or weeks of training. Their existing household knowledge may rely on the same associative machinery operating across much longer periods. A cupboard opens after one phrase. A carrier appears after another. Footsteps, daylight, clothing, and familiar words arrive in repeating combinations. Across years, those small pairings can accumulate into a dense network of predictions that nobody deliberately taught the cat. Inside an ordinary home, sounds rarely arrive by themselves. A phrase such as dinner time may be followed by footsteps across the floor, a cupboard door opening, and the scrape of a bowl against the counter. The kitchen light may already be on. Evening shadows may be gathering near the windows. A familiar smell can begin spreading through the room before the food reaches the floor. The cat receives all of these details within the same short period. Daily life, therefore, creates a much more complicated lesson than the clean sound and picture pairings used in an experiment. Speech overlaps with movement, smell, place, and time. Clothing can become part of the pattern as well. Shoes and a coat may predict that a person is about to leave. Soft clothes worn at the same hour each night may accompany a move toward the bedroom. The sound of keys can mean an outside door will soon open. A laptop closing may predict that the owner is finally available for attention. Cats can learn these regularities without anyone deliberately teaching them. Consider a cat that reacts to the word dinner. The word may have become meaningful after hundreds of repetitions. At the same time, the owner may use a higher voice while saying it. The person may stand up from the same chair, walk along the same path, and reach toward the same cupboard. The meal may usually appear within a narrow period each evening. Any one of those details could help the cat predict what is coming. Most likely, several cues work together. This makes household understanding difficult to measure. When the cat runs toward the kitchen, the word may have contributed to the response. So may the movement of the owner's body or the faint smell of opened food. Researchers separate these details in controlled tests because daily life blends them together. One important learning process is called classical conditioning. It occurs when a previously ordinary signal repeatedly appears before something important. A metal spoon tapping a ceramic bowl has no built-in meaning for a young cat. After the sound has preceded food many times, it can produce attention before the meal is visible. The sound has become a predictor. The same process can give meaning to a carrier being removed from a closet. If the carrier repeatedly appears before car travel or a veterinary visit, its sight and smell may trigger alertness long before the front door opens. Cats also learn from the results of their own actions. This process is called operant learning. A behavior becomes more likely when it regularly produces a useful consequence. A cat sits beside a cupboard and looks toward its owner. The owner opens the cupboard. On another evening, the cat adds a meow. If that signal brings a faster response, the vocal behavior may be repeated. Touching a person with one paw can work the same way. Waiting beside a closed door may cause someone to open it. Entering the bathroom might lead to fresh water from a tap. Through these small exchanges, the cat learns which actions change human behavior. Owners can reveal the strongest cues by changing the normal order. The familiar dinner phrase can be spoken while the person remains seated. A walk toward the cupboard can happen in silence. The bowl may be moved during the afternoon rather than the usual evening hour. Some cats respond immediately to the spoken phrase. Others wait for the owner to stand. A few may remain still until they hear the cupboard latch. These differences show which signals carry the greatest predictive weight for that individual. The pattern can also change over time. A new feeding schedule gradually weakens the importance of the old hour. Moving the food to another room shifts attention toward a different path through the home. Even a new container can alter the sound that once announced the meal. Household learning is therefore flexible and based on probability. One cue may be unreliable on its own. Several cues appearing together create a stronger prediction. Across months and years, the cat gathers these repeated combinations into an invisible dictionary made from voices, movements, locations, and consequences. Most entries concern events that affect the cat directly. A spoken sound becomes more revealing when it consistently points toward another individual in the home. Inside a home shared by more than one cat, a companion's name can become part of the daily soundscape. A person may say the name before placing down a bowl or opening a door. The same sound might appear when one cat is lifted from a chair, called from another room, or praised for approaching. Another cat can watch these events without being addressed. Over time, the name repeatedly occurs beside one particular face, body, scent, and pattern of movement. Researchers in Japan tested whether cats could learn that connection through ordinary household experience. The study was published in 2022. It included cats living in private homes and cats living in public cat cafes. Each participant was familiar with several other cats in its environment. During the test, the cat sat in front of a laptop computer. A recording played the name of one familiar companion. Immediately afterward, a photograph of a cat appeared on the screen. Some trials contained a matching pair. The spoken name belonged to the cat shown in the photograph. Researchers call this a congruent trial, meaning that the sound and image agree. Other trials contained a mismatch. The name of one companion played, followed by the face of another. This was an incongruent trial because the two pieces of information did not belong together. Nothing dramatic happened on the screen. The photograph remained still. No food was hidden behind it, and the pictured cat did not enter the room. The important measurement was how long the observing cat looked. Household cats spent more time watching the mismatched images. Hearing a familiar name appeared to prepare them for the face of one particular companion. When another face appeared instead, the unexpected pairing held their attention longer. That response depended on information about someone else. The listening cat was not hearing its own name. The sound did not directly announce a meal or invite it to approach. It referred to another member of the household. The most likely learning process is called third-party observational learning. Third-party means that the cat learns by watching an interaction between others. A person says one cat's name. That companion looks up, walks over, or receives attention. The observing cat hears the same sound and sees the same individual become relevant across many separate occasions. No formal lesson is required. The repeated pattern gradually links the spoken name with the companion's appearance and behavior. Cats living in cafes did not show the same clear mismatch effect. Their surroundings offered a useful contrast. Some cafe cats lived among more than 30 other cats. Visitors arrive throughout the day and use the animals' names with different accents, volumes, and levels of accuracy. One visitor might repeat a name while pointing toward the wrong cat. Another may shorten it or pronounce it differently. Several animals can also approach at the same time when a person speaks. These conditions create a noisier pattern. Inside a smaller household, the same 2 or 3 people may use a companion's name in consistent situations for years. The correct cat is more likely to appear, turn its head, or receive contact soon afterward. A cafe provides many more voices and many more possible faces, weakening the reliability of each pairing. The result does not show that cats understand names in every way humans do. A human name can carry family history, legal identity, and a sense of self that continues across a lifetime. The experiment measured a narrower ability. A familiar human sound had become connected with the visual identity of one familiar cat. Even that careful conclusion expands the role of household speech. Cats can learn from words directed towards someone else. They may gather information while resting on a windowsill, watching from beneath a table, or sitting quietly near a conversation. Ordinary interactions become repeated demonstrations of who belongs to the home and which sounds accompany each individual. The social map may extend beyond feline companions. Human names are also spoken during greetings, phone calls, departures, and conversations that seem to have nothing to do with the cat. Within a larger family, spoken names can appear many times during an ordinary day. One person may call from upstairs. Someone else may mention a family member who has gone to work. A name can be spoken just before that person enters the room, answers from a distance, or receives an object across the table. A nearby cat may be resting quietly while these patterns repeat. The 2022 study that tested companion cat names also examined whether cats connected human names with human faces. The experimental design remained similar. A cat heard the recorded name of someone from its household. The voice belonged to an experimenter rather than the named person, which helped separate the name from one familiar speaker's exact tone. A photograph then appeared on a laptop screen. During matching trials, the spoken name and the visible face belonged to the same family member. Mismatched trials paired the name with another person from the home. Researchers measured how long the cat looked at the photograph. The overall result was less clear than the earlier finding involving companion cats. Across all participating cats, the human name-face mismatch did not produce one strong and simple effect. Certain household conditions appeared to matter. Cats living with larger numbers of people showed a stronger tendency to look longer when the name and face did not match. That pattern fits the amount of exposure available inside different homes. Imagine a household shared by one person and one cat. The human's own name may rarely be spoken aloud. Phone conversations provide occasional examples, and visitors might use the name from time to time. Most daily speech is directed from the person toward the cat, leaving few chances to hear someone else refer to that human. A family of 4 creates a different learning environment. Names may be called from bedrooms or used during meals. One family member can ask where another person has gone. Someone arriving at the door may be announced before entering. Each event offers a possible pairing between a spoken sound and the individual who appears, responds, or becomes the focus of attention. Researchers call this statistical learning. The word statistical refers to patterns built from repeated probabilities. The cat does not need to understand a family conversation as a complete sentence. It can gradually register that one sound is followed by one person more often than by anyone else. The learning process resembles the household dictionary built around feeding routines, though the relationship is more difficult to detect. A food phrase may predict a bowl within seconds. A human name can appear while the person is absent, asleep, or already sitting in the room. Pronouns such as he or she may replace the name for long periods. Nicknames add further variation. The person who says the name also changes from one conversation to another. All of this makes the human pattern noisier than the name of a companion cat that is called directly and then approaches. Time spent living with the family also appeared connected with performance. Cats with longer periods of cohabitation tended to show stronger name-face patterns. That result has an important limitation. Older cats had usually lived with their families for longer. Age and experience were therefore closely linked. The study could not cleanly determine whether additional years of exposure produced the effect, whether maturity played a role, or whether both contributed. Individual households also differ greatly. Some families use names often. Others rely on nicknames or speak directly without naming the person. A cat living with several quiet adults may hear fewer useful pairings than one living with two highly talkative people. For these reasons, the evidence suggests a possibility rather than settling it completely. Some cats may learn which human face belongs with a familiar name by overhearing interactions that were never intended for them. Their stillness during conversation gives no reliable measure of how much information is being collected. A cat resting in a corner may hear one person mentioned, watch another turn toward the hallway, and see the named family member arrive moments later. Repeated often enough, those ordinary moments can organize the human household into recognizable individuals. Identity alone cannot guide every interaction. The cat must also notice which familiar person is currently looking, listening, and ready to respond. A familiar person can remain in the room while becoming temporarily unavailable. Their eyes may be fixed on a screen. Their shoulders may face away from the cat. A book can cover part of the face, or a conversation may hold attention across the room. From the cat's point of view, identity has stayed the same, while the chance of receiving a response has changed. Researchers have tested whether cats notice this difference during food-related tasks. In one experiment, two people offered the cat competing sources of information. One person looked directly toward the animal and called to it. The other also spoke, but kept their gaze turned away. Cats chose the food connected with the attentive person more often. The result suggests that the direction of a human's face can affect how useful that human appears. Calling alone carried information. The combination of calling and looking provided a stronger signal. A cat has several visible details available during an encounter. The eyes may be open and aimed toward the animal. Head direction provides a larger and easier shape to follow from a distance. The torso shows whether the person is facing toward the cat or preparing to move elsewhere. Hands can reach, point, hold an object, or remain occupied. Distance changes how quickly contact could happen. Furniture and doorways determine whether a clear path exists between the two individuals. These signals often agree with one another. A person who says the cat's name may also turn their head, shift their shoulders, and extend a hand. The cat learns that this combination often leads to touch food, play, or access to a space. Conflicting signals create less certainty. An owner may call warmly while continuing to look at a laptop. A hand can reach toward the cat while the rest of the body moves toward a door. The cat must decide which parts of the display usually predict a useful outcome. This ability can be described as sensitivity to attentional cues. Attentional cues are outward signs that reveal where another individual's senses and actions are currently directed. They provide practical information without requiring the cat to understand another person's private beliefs. Scientists use the phrase theory of mind for the much broader ability to reason about what someone else knows, wants, or falsely believes. The food choice evidence does not establish that level of human-like reasoning. It shows that cats can notice visible signs of engagement and adjust their behavior around them. That adjustment appears often inside homes. A cat seeking food may first sit near the cupboard. When the owner continues watching television, the cat may move closer to the screen or position itself between the person and the display. Some cats touch an arm or place one paw on a leg. Others wait until a phone call ends before vocalizing. The timing can make the signal more effective because the human is finally able to notice it. Objects also help cats guide attention. A cat may sit beside an empty bowl rather than approaching the owner from a random location. Waiting near a closed door connects the animal's presence with the barrier that needs to move. Standing beside a toy can narrow the likely meaning of a meow. These choices make communication easier for the human to interpret. Experience gradually shapes which approach each cat uses. A soft vocalization may work with one person. Another family member may respond more reliably when the cat enters their line of sight. Someone who sleeps deeply might react only after the cat touches the bed. The animal can learn these differences because each person produces a different history of responses. Human attention also changes from moment to moment. A person who ignored the cat several seconds earlier may now turn, make eye contact, or set an object aside. The cat's behavior can shift as those cues change. A resting animal may stand when the owner finally looks toward it. A cat waiting by a hallway may begin walking once it sees the person's body turn in the same direction. Recognition has become part of a live calculation. The cat identifies the person, observes their current orientation, and estimates whether a signal is likely to succeed. Once human attention has been located, its direction can point beyond the person toward a place, container, or hidden object elsewhere in the room. A human hand can turn attention towards something several feet away. The finger itself may be empty. The useful object sits at the far end of the gesture, perhaps inside a cup or beneath a small cover. Following that signal requires more than watching motion. The cat must connect the direction of the hand with a location in the room. Researchers often test this ability with a simple two-choice task. Two containers are placed on the floor, usually the same size and shape. Food is hidden inside one of them, while the cat is unable to see where it goes. A person then points toward the correct container without touching it or walking closer. The cat is released and allowed to choose. Success depends on using the person's movement as information about a hidden reward. Domestic cats have performed above chance in pointing tasks, showing that many can extract spatial guidance from a human gesture. The result is especially interesting because pointing is common in human communication, but rare in the natural behavior of solitary wildcats. A finger creates a line through space. The cat must look beyond the hand and carry that direction toward the floor. Distance matters. A gesture made close to one container may be easier because the hand itself becomes a nearby cue. Researchers therefore vary how far the finger remains from the target. A more demanding version keeps the hand near the person's body, while the containers sit farther away. Some cats still choose correctly under those conditions. Comparisons with dogs require care. Dogs have lived under strong selection for cooperative work with humans, including herding, retrieving, guarding, and hunting beside people. Cats followed a different path into human settlements. Even so, at least one direct comparison found no clear statistical difference between cats and dogs in their ability to use human pointing. Cats often completed fewer trials. They were more likely to leave the testing area, stop approaching the containers, or lose interest in the food. That pattern makes motivation an important part of the result. A cat that refuses the 5th trial may have understood the gesture during the first 4. Performance can fall because the reward is no longer attractive or the situation has become uncomfortable. The eyes and head can provide similar directional information. In one 2-choice food task, cats followed a person's gaze when it was accompanied by head movement in roughly 70% of trials. The head turn produced a larger visual signal than eye movement alone. From several feet away, the direction of the face is easier to detect than the exact position of the pupils. Cats may combine several details during these tasks. A pointing arm moves toward one side. The person's face turns in the same direction. Their shoulders shift slightly, and the reward has appeared in similar places during earlier trials. The final choice can be built from the full pattern, rather than from one isolated cue. Experience inside the home may strengthen this ability. An owner points toward a dropped treat. A hand directs the cat away from an open door. A person gestures toward a chair, windowsill, or carrier. Repeated events teach the cat that human movement sometimes contains useful information about places. This does not establish that cats understand pointing exactly as young children do. A child can learn that another person intends to share knowledge about an object simply for the sake of informing them. Scientists call this declarative intention. A cat may rely more heavily on learned direction, reward history, and visible movement. The gesture still reduces uncertainty. 2 identical containers sit on the floor. The cat cannot smell or see the hidden food clearly. A human movement makes one location more likely than the other. Human behavior has become a guide to the wider environment. The same hands and gaze that indicate location can also arrive with a smiling mouth, tightened eyes, or a tense posture. Those facial patterns may help a cat judge whether moving closer is likely to feel safe, rewarding, or uncomfortable. The meaning of a gesture can change with the face and body surrounding it. An open hand may arrive with relaxed shoulders and a soft expression. The same movement can appear beside narrowed eyes, a tight mouth, and a body leaning forward. Cats have many visible details available when deciding how to respond. The human face contains dozens of small movements. Muscles around the eyes can tighten or relax. The corners of the mouth rise, flatten, or pull downward. Cheeks lift during a smile, while tension around the jaw changes the overall shape of the lower face. Head position adds information because a lowered chin, a direct stare, or a face turned partly away can make the same person appear different. Posture extends the signal beyond the face. A relaxed person may sit with loose arms and slow movements. An upset person may move more quickly, hold the body stiffly, or turn toward the cat with greater force. Cats encounter these combinations throughout daily life. A study published in 2016 examined whether domestic cats responded differently to positive and negative emotional displays from humans. The cats observed both their owners and unfamiliar people. During positive displays, the person smiled and used a relaxed posture. Negative displays included an angry facial expression and a tenser body position. Researchers then recorded behaviors such as approaching, rubbing, vocalizing, looking away, or leaving the area. The results showed some discrimination, especially when the person was the cat's owner. Positive expressions from owners were more likely to be followed by friendly behaviors, including spending time close to the person. The difference was weaker when the same expressions came from a stranger. Researchers described the cats as modestly sensitive to human emotional cues. That wording is useful because the effect was real but limited. A cat did not react in the same way every time. Some animals watched quietly. Others remained at a distance or showed little obvious change. Individual experience probably matters. A cat that has lived with one person for 8 years has watched thousands of expressions pass across that familiar face. Certain patterns may repeatedly appear before predictable events. A relaxed smile can accompany gentle touch or a familiar greeting. Tightened facial muscles may occur before a loud movement, an interruption, or a change in the room's general activity. The expression gains value because of what usually follows it. Scientists call this emotional valence. Valence describes whether something has generally positive or negative importance for the animal. A visible pattern can acquire positive valence when it often leads to safe or rewarding experiences. Another pattern can gain negative valence when it regularly appears before discomfort, raised voices, or unwanted handling. The cat does not need to know why the person feels that way. Repeated consequences are enough to make the expression useful. Familiarity strengthens the connection. One owner's smile has a particular shape. Their eyebrows move in a familiar way, and their posture changes at a pace the cat has seen many times. A stranger may display the same broad emotion while using different movements. The unknown person also lacks the long history that gives the expression predictive meaning. Facial reading therefore develops partly through experience with specific individuals. The evidence does not show that cats label emotions with human concepts. A cat cannot tell researchers that it has recognized anger or happiness. The study also cannot prove that the animal understands what caused the expression. Sharing another person's emotional experience would require stronger evidence than approaching a smiling owner or avoiding a tense posture. The measured ability is more practical. The cat detects visible differences and uses them, while deciding whether to remain nearby, move closer, or create distance. That skill can be valuable in a shared home. A person's face may signal whether touch is likely. Posture can reveal whether the person is settling into a chair or preparing to leave. Sudden tension may predict louder movement in the room. The familiar face becomes one source of information among many. A real emotional event rarely reaches the cat through vision alone. The person's voice changes at the same time, carrying pitch, volume, and rhythm that can either fit the expression or conflict with it. When a voice reaches a cat, the sound rarely remains separate from the person or animal that produced it. The brain combines information arriving through different senses and treats it as one event. This process is called cross-modal integration. Cross-modal simply means that more than one sensory channel is involved. A moving mouth is connected with a voice. A sudden hiss belongs with a tense body and an open mouth. The rustle of a food bag becomes linked with its shape, smell, and location. Each sense provides only part of the event. Together, they create a fuller picture. Researchers have tested whether cats can connect emotional sounds with matching facial expressions. During one experiment, domestic cats sat in front of a screen while recordings played through a speaker. Some sounds came from other cats. The recordings included purring, which often appears during friendly contact or calm social situations, and hissing, which commonly signals fear, defense, or a desire for greater distance. The screen showed photographs of cats displaying facial patterns linked with those different conditions. A relaxed feline face accompanied one type of trial. A more tense and defensive expression appeared during another. Some pairings matched. A hiss played while an aggressive or defensive feline face appeared. Other trials deliberately placed the sound beside a face with the opposite emotional meaning. The cats were also tested with human signals. They heard vocal expressions associated with happiness or anger while viewing photographs of human faces. The voices and faces sometimes carried the same broad emotional value. Other trials created a mismatch between what could be heard and what could be seen. Researchers measured how long each cat looked at the screen. Looking time provided evidence about whether the combination fit an expectation. The cats looked significantly longer at matching faces during several important conditions. A feline hiss held more attention when it appeared with the corresponding defensive face. Human anger produced a similar pattern with an angry human expression. The cats also looked longer when a happy human voice was paired with a happy face. Their wider behavior changed according to the emotional category as well. Some combinations produced more alert posture, movement, or signs of caution. Others were followed by calmer observation. These results require the cat to do more than tell two sounds apart. The auditory system must first process the pitch, volume, duration, and roughness of the vocalization. At the same time, the visual system measures eye shape, mouth position, muscle tension, and head posture. Information from both channels is then connected according to its emotional valence. Valence is the broad positive or negative importance an event carries for the animal. A purr and a relaxed face often occur during compatible social conditions. A hiss and a tense face usually signal a very different kind of encounter. Repeated experience allows these combinations to become linked. Once the relationship is stored, hearing one part can prepare the cat for the other. A hiss may create an expectation of defensive body language before the other animal comes fully into view. An angry human voice can prepare the cat for faster movement or greater tension in the face and shoulders. When the visible expression fits the sound, the event forms a familiar pattern. A mismatch can also attract attention because the two signals do not belong together as easily. The findings support integrated emotional recognition. They do not reveal whether cats experience human happiness or anger in the same way people do. The experiment also cannot show whether a cat places emotions into clear mental categories with names or concepts. The measured ability is practical and grounded in perception. The cat can connect signals from separate senses when those signals repeatedly describe the same type of social event. This makes its view of a person more unified. A familiar human arrives as a voice, a moving face, a body position, and a history of earlier outcomes. Each part can affect how the others are interpreted. Human attention naturally settles on faces and voices because those signals dominate our own social lives. For a cat, another channel carries detailed information that a person may never notice at all. Changes in the skin, breath, and sweat can leave chemical traces in the air, allowing emotion and physical state to travel through scent. Smell adds a hidden layer to every social encounter a cat experiences. Human skin releases a changing mixture of water, salts, oils, and small chemical compounds. Some of these compounds evaporate easily and travel through the air. Scientists call them volatile molecules because they can leave a surface as a gas and reach the nose. Breath carries its own chemical mixture. Clothing collects traces from skin and sweat, along with the smells of rooms, food, soap, and outdoor air. Physical activity changes this chemical cloud. So can body temperature, breathing rate, and the activity of sweat glands. Strong emotions affect several of these processes at once. Fear may increase heart rate and sweating. Happiness can also alter breathing, circulation, and hormone activity. The resulting body odor contains a complicated mixture, rather than one single chemical for each emotion. Cats are especially well equipped to notice such changes. Air entering a cat's nose passes through narrow passages lined with folded tissue. Part of that tissue contains olfactory receptor cells, which are nerve cells that respond to odor molecules. Different receptors react to different chemical shapes. The brain combines activity from many receptors into an overall odor pattern. A study published in 2023 tested whether cats responded differently to human odors collected during emotional situations. 22 domestic cats participated. Their ages ranged from 7 months to 11 years. Human donors watched videos chosen to produce happiness or fear, while absorbent pads collected odor from their armpits. Unused pads provided a neutral comparison. During the cat test, the human donor was absent. This removed visible facial expressions, body posture, and vocal tone from the encounter. Each cat received chemical information through smell alone. Researchers observed how the animals approached and investigated the samples. They recorded the length of sniffing, changes in stress-related behavior, and which nostril the cat placed closest to the odor. Responses differed across the happiness, fear, and neutral conditions. Fear-related odor was associated with higher signs of stress. The cats also showed patterns in how they used the left and right sides of the nose. This side preference is called nostril lateralization. Lateralization occurs when the two sides of the nervous system contribute differently to processing information. Signals entering one nostril are connected more strongly with particular pathways in the brain. In many mammals, unfamiliar or emotionally intense odors can produce a temporary preference for one nostril. As an odor becomes familiar, that pattern may shift. The cats in the study showed greater use of the right nostril as stress increased. especially around fear-related samples. The right nostril sends much of its information toward the right side of the brain. That hemisphere is often involved in processing unfamiliar events and signals linked with caution or withdrawal. This interpretation remains careful because nostril position can also be affected by how a cat approaches the sample or turns its head. 22 cats provide an informative beginning, while larger studies will be needed to test how consistent the pattern is across ages and living conditions. The results support sensitivity to human chemical signals associated with emotional states. They do not show that a cat smells a sample and identifies it with a human word such as fear. An odor profile can still carry useful information without being placed into a named category. The chemical mixture may simply predict that a person's body is in a different condition from usual. Inside a home, smell never reaches the cat in isolation. A tense person may breathe more quickly and walk with shorter movements. Their voice can become sharper or quieter, while the muscles around the face tighten. Changes in sweat and skin chemistry add another signal that remains mostly invisible to humans. The cat receives the complete person through several senses at once. A familiar voice carries pitch and rhythm. The face provides visible movement. Body odor adds information produced directly by physiology. These channels may reinforce one another when the person's state is clear. They can also create uncertainty when the voice sounds calm, while movement and odor suggest rising tension. Detecting that change becomes especially useful when something unfamiliar appears nearby. A cat facing an uncertain object may glance toward its owner, using the human's reaction as extra information about what the room now contains. In the experiment, the uncertain object was an electric fan with green plastic ribbons attached to it. The fan stood at one end of a room while the ribbons moved in the air. For a cat, the object offered mixed information. It produced motion and a low mechanical sound, yet it did not chase, approach, or clearly threaten anything. The owner remained nearby while the cat explored. Researchers watched for a particular sequence of behavior. The cat looked toward the fan. Its gaze then shifted to the owner before returning toward the moving ribbons. This pattern is called referential looking. The word referential means that the two looks are connected. The cat appears to check the owner in relation to the uncertain object, rather than glancing around the room at random. A study published in 2015 used this setup to examine social referencing in domestic cats. Social referencing occurs when an animal uses another individual's reaction as information about an unclear situation. Human infants often do this when they encounter an unfamiliar person, object, or surface. They inspect the uncertain event and then look toward a caregiver's face for extra guidance. During the cat experiment, owners were instructed to deliver either a positive or negative message about the fan. The positive message included a relaxed face, a pleasant voice, and movements suggesting that the object was safe. The negative message used a worried expression and a more cautious vocal tone. Owners were also asked to look between the cat and the fan, helping connect their reaction with the object being tested. 79% of the cats displayed referential looking. They moved their gaze between the fan and their owners at least once during the experiment. That high proportion showed that most of the animals noticed both parts of the situation. The moving object mattered, and the familiar human's response also mattered. Some aspects of the cat's behavior changed according to the owner's message. Cats exposed to the negative response were more likely to look toward the room's exit. They also showed differences in how they moved around the space and interacted with the owner. The effect did not appear in exactly the same way across every measure. Some cats continued investigating despite the negative message. Others kept their distance even when the owner behaved positively. Temperament, earlier experience, and the strength of the bond with the owner could all affect the result. The experiment, therefore, does not show that an owner can simply place an emotion inside a cat. The human reaction became one useful cue among several. The fan's movement supplied information. Its sound and distance added more. The cat's past experience with machines, airflow, or moving objects also influenced the decision. The owner's face and voice helped adjust the overall estimate of risk. This is the practical value of social referencing. An unfamiliar object may offer too little information for an immediate choice. Watching another individual can reduce that uncertainty. A calm owner who remains close to the fan provides indirect evidence that approaching may be safe. A tense owner who keeps glancing toward the object can make caution more useful. The cat still makes its own decision from the combined signals. Similar moments appear in everyday homes. A large package arrives and remains near the door. A robotic vacuum begins moving through the hallway. Someone opens an umbrella indoors, changing its size within a second. The cat may watch the object, then briefly check the nearest familiar person. A calm voice and relaxed posture can become part of the event. Sudden movement or visible tension can shift the cat toward greater distance. This ability gives emotional perception a clear purpose. Facial expressions, vocal tone, and body odor can help the cat evaluate something beyond the human. The owner becomes an extra source of environmental information. That role depends on a history of reliable interaction. A stranger's expression may carry less weight because the cat has little experience connecting that person's reactions with later outcomes. A familiar caregiver has been present through meals, noises, visitors, and changes inside the home. Over time, that person can become a stable point from which the cat judges unfamiliar surroundings. That long history changes the value of every signal an owner provides. A stranger may smile, speak gently, or remain relaxed beside an unfamiliar object. The cat has little experience connecting that person's behavior with later events. A familiar caregiver carries years of stored information. Their footsteps have preceded meals and quiet evenings. Their hands have opened doors, moved frightening objects away, and provided contact during unfamiliar situations. Repeated experience can make that person a dependable source of safety and stability. Researchers study this relationship with a procedure called the secure base test. A secure base is a familiar individual whose presence helps an animal explore an uncertain place. The idea was first developed through studies of human infants and was later adapted for dogs and other animals. In the feline version, a cat enters an unfamiliar room with its caregiver. The space may contain a chair and several objects, but it lacks the smells and landmarks of home. For about 2 minutes, the caregiver remains in the room, while the cat is free to explore. The person then leaves for a brief separation lasting roughly 2 minutes. Afterward, the caregiver returns for a reunion period. Researchers record how the cat behaves during each stage. They watch whether exploration changes when the owner is present. Signs of stress during separation may include vocalizing, standing near the door, or reducing movement around the room. The reunion is especially important. A study published in 2019 used this procedure with kittens and adult cats at Oregon State University. 70 kittens produced behavior clear enough to classify. About 64% were placed in the securely attached group. 38 adult cats were also tested, and close to 66% received the same classification. Together, the results place roughly 2/3 of the tested animals in the secure group. Securely classified cats often showed some stress when the caregiver left. After the person returned, the cat sought enough contact to settle, then resumed exploring the room. This balance matters. The owner's presence appeared to lower uncertainty without preventing independent movement. A cat might greet the caregiver, remain nearby for a short period, and then investigate the walls or objects again. Other cats showed patterns classified as insecure. Some maintained very close contact after reunion and had difficulty returning to exploration. Others avoided the caregiver or moved between approach and withdrawal. These categories describe behavior during one structured test. They do not mean that a cat is damaged or incapable of forming a strong relationship. Temperament can influence how an animal handles a strange room. Early socialization also matters. A cat accustomed to visitors and new places may explore quickly, while one raised in a quiet home may remain cautious. Past separations, health, age, and the testing environment can also change what appears during a few minutes of observation. Scientists continue to debate how closely these feline patterns match attachment in human infants. A cat and a child develop through very different social systems. The secure base test still provides useful evidence that many cats respond to caregivers in a person-specific way. The familiar human can reduce stress and support renewed exploration after an unsettling separation. This relationship helps explain why one owner's voice or expression may carry more weight than the same signal from a stranger. The face has been present through thousands of earlier outcomes. A calm tone has often accompanied ordinary safety. Familiar scent and movement tell the cat that a known individual has returned. The owner's reaction becomes meaningful partly because an entire history stands behind it. That history may continue influencing the cat after the caregiver passes through a doorway. A familiar voice can remain in the room, carrying both identity and location, while the person who produced it is hidden from view. A voice can identify a familiar person, while also revealing where that person seems to be. Researchers tested this combination in a study published in 2021. The cats were placed alone inside familiar rooms, usually within their own homes or the cat cafes where they lived. 2 wireless speakers were positioned apart. One speaker stood inside the room. The other was placed beyond a doorway or near the opposite side of the space. Researchers used the greatest separation that each room allowed, with some speaker pairs more than 4 meters apart. No person remained visible during the test. The first speaker played a recording of the cat's owner calling its name. The same call was repeated 5 times. Each repetition came from the same location. As the sequence continued, the cat often responded less strongly. Its ears might turn during the first call, then move only slightly during the 4th or 5th. The voice remained familiar, while its position became predictable. A final recording played a short time later. Sometimes the 6th call came from the original speaker. During other trials, it came from the second speaker across the room. the voice could also change. A stranger might replace the owner, allowing researchers to separate a sudden change in identity from a sudden change in location. The most striking reactions appeared when the owner's voice stayed the same, but moved to the distant speaker. A cat might turn its head rapidly toward the new location. Its ears could shift forward, and the body sometimes became more alert. Independent observers later watched recordings of the cats and rated how surprised they appeared. The strongest surprise occurred when the familiar owner seemed to move across the room without enough time to travel the distance. The owner had called from one place 5 times. Moments later, the same voice appeared somewhere else. From the cat's position, the person seemed to have crossed several meters almost instantly. The researchers described the event as a kind of impossible teleportation. This phrase referred to the broken expectation created by the sound. The cat did not see a person vanish or reappear. It heard evidence that one familiar individual occupied 2 locations in an impossible sequence. The study also included other sounds. Recordings of familiar cat vocalizations were used in separate trials. Non-vocal sounds, including electronic noises, provided another comparison. Those sounds did not produce the same clear pattern of surprise when their locations changed. The strongest effect was tied to the owner's voice. That result goes beyond simple voice recognition. Recognition alone would allow the cat to identify who was speaking. The location change required several pieces of information to work together. The cat had to recognize the voice, locate its source, remember the earlier position, and expect the same person to move through space continuously. Researchers call this socio-spatial cognition. Socio refers to another individual. Spatial refers to position and movement within an environment. Together, the term describes an ability to keep track of where another individual appears to be. A cat's ears provide useful information for this task. Each outer ear can rotate independently toward a sound. Small differences in when a sound reaches the left and right ears help the brain estimate direction. The head can then turn toward the likely source, refining the location further. Memory preserves that estimate after the recording stops. When the next call arrives, the new source can be compared with the stored position. The experiment does not reveal a detailed picture inside the cat's thoughts. Its results support a temporary spatial expectation linked to one socially important individual. The owner remained absent from view, yet the cat behaved as though that person continued to occupy a particular place. For a few quiet moments, the familiar human existed inside the cat's model of the room. That model can guide attention even when walls, furniture, or darkness interrupt vision. The same basic ability would be useful when prey slips behind grass, a toy rolls beneath a sofa, or another animal passes through a doorway. An unseen target can continue to exist, carrying a remembered direction and a likely place of return. For a hunting animal, that continuity can decide whether a chase succeeds. A mouse may cross an open patch of ground and disappear behind grass, a stone, or a fallen branch. The cat sees the direction of travel before the body vanishes. Its attention remains fixed near the place where the mouse is most likely to appear again. This ability depends on object permanence. Object permanence means that an object continues to exist after it can no longer be seen, heard, or touched. Human infants develop this ability gradually during their first years. Cats also show several levels of it, especially in tasks that resemble the movement of hidden prey. Researchers usually separate these tests into visible and invisible displacement. During visible displacement, the cat watches an object move into a hiding place. A toy might slide behind a screen. Food may be placed beneath one of several covers. The cat sees the entire path until the object disappears. Single visible displacement involves one hiding place. Successive displacement is harder because the object passes behind several screens or containers in sequence. The animal must update the likely position each time. Domestic cats have performed reliably in both kinds of visible displacement task. They search near the final location rather than returning only to the place where the object first disappeared. That result shows an intermediate level of object permanence. The cat preserves information about direction and updates the target's location, while movement remains visible. Invisible displacement requires a more complicated inference. Imagine a small toy placed inside a cup. The cup moves behind one screen, then returns empty. The cat never sees the toy leave the cup. To search correctly, it must infer that the hidden object was deposited behind the screen, while both were out of sight. These advanced tasks have produced mixed results in cats. Some animals search near the correct hiding place. Others follow the container, return to the last visible location, or stop participating. A recent home-based study examined this problem with 18 domestic cats. Testing inside familiar homes reduced some of the stress caused by an unfamiliar laboratory. Both owners and researchers acted as manipulators, meaning they moved the containers and hidden objects during different trials. The cats showed clear understanding when they watched an object move visibly into a hiding place. Evidence for advanced invisible displacement remained uncertain. Several cats could not be included in the final comparisons because they became fearful, lost motivation, or stopped following the task. Those exclusions reveal a recurring problem in feline cognition research. A cat may possess the required memory, while finding the experiment uncomfortable or unrewarding. Repeated trials can also weaken interest. A food reward loses value after eating. A toy may attract one cat and leave another completely unmoved. Working memory supports the temporary representation used in these tasks. Working memory holds a limited amount of information for a short period while the animal uses it. The cat stores the target's last position, its direction of movement, and the barriers it passed. Physical expectations narrow the possible outcomes. A toy that rolled behind a sofa should remain somewhere beyond the front edge. A mouse that entered a hole is unlikely to emerge from a sealed cupboard across the room. The brain uses remembered movement and the layout of the environment to estimate where searching will be most useful. This same principle helps connect hidden objects with hidden individuals. In the voice experiment, the owner disappeared from view while remaining attached to one remembered location. The cat reacted when that person's voice suddenly emerged several meters away. A familiar human had violated the same kind of spatial continuity that constrains a toy, prey animal, or companion passing behind a barrier. Closed doors therefore do more than block vision. A cat may continue tracking footsteps beyond them. It can wait beside the opening, where a person usually returns, or monitor the cupboard into which a toy disappeared. The hidden space remains organized by memory and expectation. These representations may last for several seconds while movement continues nearby. Experiences inside a household can remain useful much longer, preserving what happened and where it occurred after the room has become quiet again. 15 minutes is long enough for the original scene to disappear. The bowls have been removed, the smells have faded, and the cat has spent time somewhere else. When it returns, its search can still be guided by details from the earlier visit. Researchers explored this ability in a study published in 2017 involving 49 domestic cats. The animals were allowed to investigate several containers without receiving any warning that their memory would later be tested. This kind of learning is called incidental memory. Incidental memory forms while an animal is simply experiencing an event. There is no command to remember a location, and no trained signal announcing that a test will follow. Information is stored because the brain treats it as potentially useful. During the first experiment, 4 open containers were placed in a testing area. 2 held food that the cat was allowed to eat. The remaining 2 were also baited, though the cat was prevented from eating from them during the initial visit. After exploring the arrangement, the cat left the room. A delay of 15 minutes followed. When the animal returned, all 4 containers were empty. No fresh food smell clearly revealed the correct place. The researchers watched which locations the cat approached and how long it investigated them. Cats spent more time examining the containers from which they had not previously eaten. That pattern suggested that they retained information about the earlier event. A location where food had already been consumed offered little remaining value. A second location had contained food that the cat had seen or smelled without receiving. Returning there was a sensible choice based on what had happened 15 minutes earlier. The second experiment made the test more precise. 2 containers held food. A third contained a small, non-edible object, while the fourth remained empty. The cat was allowed to eat from only one of the food containers before leaving the room. 15 minutes later, every container was presented empty. The cats chose the remaining previously baited container first, more often than chance would predict. They also spent longer investigating that location. Success required more than remembering that food had existed somewhere in the room. The cat needed information about what each container had held and where the uneaten food had been located. Researchers often describe these features as what and where. The what concerned the contents of the container. The where concerned its position within the testing area. Both pieces had to remain connected. Remembering food without its location would provide little guidance. Remembering a location without its earlier contents would make every container equally useful. The event also occurred only once. Cats were not trained across dozens of repeated sessions until one response became automatic. They experienced the arrangement, left the space, and later used parts of that single experience. Scientists describe this ability as episodic-like memory. Human episodic memory can involve consciously recalling a particular event, such as remembering where you sat during a meal or what happened during yesterday's walk. Researchers cannot ask a cat whether it mentally returns to an earlier moment. The word "like" keeps the conclusion tied to behavior. The cats remembered several connected features of one past occasion in a way that guided later action. The study does not reveal whether the experience was replayed internally. It shows that information from a single event remained available after the event had ended. This kind of memory can shape daily behavior inside a home. One successful search beneath a chair may bring the cat back to the same place hours later. A carrier followed by a stressful journey can affect the cat's response the next time the carrier appears. A cupboard opened once to reveal treats may receive careful attention on future evenings. Ordinary moments can leave useful records after a single exposure, especially when food, surprise, or discomfort makes the event important. Memory gives the cat a way to predict what humans are likely to do. The same process also records which feline actions have worked before. A particular meow, touch, or position beside a door may have caused a person to respond during one memorable interaction. When that signal succeeds again, the cat can begin shaping the human's behavior as carefully as the human shapes its own. A remembered success can become tomorrow's signal. When a cat meows beside a closed door and the door opens, the result gives that sound practical value. The person has learned something too. A certain call near the hallway means something different from the same call beside an empty bowl. Communication begins moving in both directions. Adult cats use meows far more often with humans than with other adult cats. Young kittens meow when they are cold, hungry, or separated from their mother. As cats mature, communication with other cats relies heavily on scent, body posture, facial movement, and physical contact. Human beings cannot detect most feline scent marks and often miss small changes in posture. Meowing provides a signal that people notice easily. Those calls vary greatly. Pitch determines whether a meow sounds high or low. Duration can range from a brief chirp-like sound to a call held for more than a second. The pitch may rise, fall, or bend through several notes. Repetition changes the effect as well, especially when a single call becomes a rapid series. Context helps the owner interpret all of these features. A short sound made at the kitchen entrance may predict food. A longer call near an outside door may accompany a request for access. The same cat can produce a different pattern while carrying a toy, greeting someone, or searching for a person in another room. No universal dictionary can translate every meow. Meaning develops partly through the history shared by one animal and one household. Scientists use the term ontogenetic ritualization for a process that can create these private signals. Ontogenetic refers to changes developing during an individual lifetime. Ritualization means that an ordinary action gradually becomes a clear communicative signal. A cat may begin by making a general sound while waiting near a cupboard. The owner responds by preparing food. After several successful evenings, the sound becomes more likely to appear in that location. Small variations also receive different results. A louder call may attract attention faster. A softer version might work when the owner is already nearby. The useful forms survive through repetition because they reliably change what the human does. People adapt in return. An owner may learn that one call usually precedes play, while another appears before the cat becomes sick. Family members can recognize differences that sound almost identical to a visitor. Their accuracy comes from thousands of earlier encounters involving the same voice, setting, and outcome. A study published in 2025 compared 276 meows from 14 cats with 557 purrs from 21 cats. Purrs carried stronger acoustic signs of individual identity. Recordings from the same cat were easier to recognize as belonging together. Meows showed greater variation, both within one animal and across different situations. The researchers suggested that this flexibility may help cats adjust their calls according to context and the responses they receive from humans. Purring and meowing serve different roles. A purr is produced through rapid activity in muscles around the voice box, creating a repeating vibration during breathing. It can occur during contentment, social contact, pain, or stress. Its steady structure may preserve more clues about the individual producing it. A meow allows wider changes in pitch and timing, making it more adaptable as a signal. Much of this negotiation happens without sound. A cat can move directly into a person's line of sight. Sitting beside a toy or door connects the animal with the object that matters. Some cats walk several steps, look back, and continue only after the owner follows. A paw placed on an arm can interrupt an activity gently. Gaze alternation between a person and an object helps narrow the likely message. Slow blinking may support calm social contact, although each blink should be interpreted alongside posture, distance, and the surrounding situation. Through reciprocal reinforcement, both participants become easier for the other to influence. The human learns which feline behaviors predict particular needs. The cat discovers which signals reliably produce movement, access, or attention. Over years, one pair can create a communication system that another person would only partly understand. This remarkable flexibility developed from a much older relationship, beginning when wildcats approached the first farming settlements and found new advantages in watching human behavior. Long before a cat learned which meow would open a modern cupboard, its ancestors were learning how closely they could approach a human settlement. The change began as people in the Near East adopted agriculture roughly 10,000 years ago. Harvested wheat and barley could be stored for months, creating food supplies far larger than anything found in a hunter-gatherer camp. Those stores attracted house mice and other small rodents. A settlement filled with grain also became a dependable hunting ground. The wildcats living across North Africa and the Near East belonged to the species Felis libica. They were small, solitary predators with sandy coats, dark tail rings, and bodies already similar to those of modern domestic cats. Most would have kept their distance from people. A few individuals were naturally more tolerant. Those cats could hunt near walls, storage rooms, and piles of harvested plants without fleeing whenever a person appeared. Their caution still kept them safe, while their tolerance gave them access to unusually concentrated prey. Humans gained something from the arrangement as well. Rodents ate stored food and contaminated it with droppings. A wildcat hunting around a granary helped reduce that pressure without requiring formal training. People may have protected useful cats, allowed them to remain nearby, or carried kittens between settlements. The earliest stages probably developed through repeated coexistence rather than a planned effort to create an obedient animal. Scientists call this commensal domestication. A commensal relationship begins when one species benefits from living around another. The first cats gained prey and shelter from the human environment. People received quieter grain stores and fewer rodents. Selection gradually favored animals capable of tolerating settlement noise, human movement, and close contact with other cats. Archaeological evidence from Cyprus shows how early the relationship had developed. At the site of Shilourokambos, a human was buried near a cat, roughly 9,500 years ago. Cats were not native to the island, so people must have transported at least one population there by boat. The burial does not explain exactly how the person regarded the animal, though it shows that cats had already moved with humans beyond their natural range. Genetic evidence points mainly toward Near Eastern wildcat populations as the source of early domestic cats. A second major influence later emerged from Egypt. Ancient Egyptian art from the second millennium before the Common Era shows cats beneath chairs, near food, and within family settings. Some were valued for hunting mice or birds. Others became connected with religious traditions and the goddess Bastet. From the first millennium before the Common Era, cats spread more widely through Mediterranean trade. Phoenician sailors, Greek merchants, and later Roman networks moved food, people, and animals among ports. Ships carrying grain also carried rodents. Cats offered a practical form of pest control during long voyages and inside coastal storehouses. Their remains and genetic traces gradually appeared across Europe, Western Asia, and parts of Africa. This history shaped feline behavior differently from the path followed by dogs. Dogs descended from wolves and entered human relationships much earlier. Over thousands of years, people selected dogs for tasks requiring close coordination. Different populations guarded camps, followed scent trails, moved livestock, and retrieved hunted animals. Success often depended on watching human gestures and responding quickly to direction. Cats faced a different set of pressures. Their main task remained hunting small prey independently. A mouse hiding beneath a wall did not require a person to point the way. Human settlements rewarded cats that tolerated our presence, learned our routines, and avoided unnecessary conflict. Strong obedience offered less advantage than careful observation. Modern domestic cats still retain much of the body plan and hunting sequence of their wild ancestors. They stalk alone, use short bursts of speed, and rely on hearing to locate small prey hidden from view. Their social flexibility increased enough to support life with people, and in many homes with other cats. That evolutionary history helps explain selective responsiveness. A cat can recognize a voice without approaching it. It may follow a gesture when the information appears useful, then ignore a repeated command that offers no clear benefit. This behavior reflects an animal shaped to gather information while preserving control over its own movements. The arrangement has lasted for thousands of years because it worked for both species. People created places rich in food and shelter. Cats learned to read human activity well enough to live inside them. An animal shaped for quiet coexistence may reveal its abilities poorly when placed in a strange room and asked to perform on demand. The resting cat from the beginning of this journey may turn one ear when its name crosses the room. That movement alone cannot tell us exactly what happened inside the animal. It may have detected the sound and recognized the owner's voice. The familiar name may have stood apart from the words surrounding it. Tone, timing, and the owner's position could have added further information. The cat may then have compared the moment with its normal routine and decided that remaining still was the most useful response. Each step requires different evidence. Together, they create a clearer way to understand feline attention. Controlled experiments show that cats can distinguish familiar human voices from unfamiliar ones. Many separate their own names from similar words, including when a stranger speaks. Some form new connections between sounds and images after less than a minute of total exposure. Household cats have linked familiar companion names with the correct faces. apparently through ordinary observation. Human gaze and pointing can guide them toward hidden food or a distant location. Facial expression, vocal tone, and body odor contribute information about emotional conditions. During uncertainty, many cats look between a strange object and a familiar caregiver. Recorded voices have shown that cats can preserve an estimate of where an unseen owner should be. Food container experiments reveal memory for what appeared in a location during one earlier event. These abilities form a ladder rather than one single power called understanding. Sensory discrimination allows the cat to notice a difference. Association connects one signal with another event. Repeated associations support prediction. Memory preserves those relationships after time passes. Motivation determines whether any of that knowledge becomes visible through movement. Current evidence has not demonstrated human grammar, an unlimited vocabulary, or abstract conversation. Scientists also cannot claim complete access to feline intentions. Each conclusion must remain close to the behavior that produced it. That caution is especially important because cat studies are difficult to conduct. Many experiments include only a few dozen animals. Some participants walk away before completing enough trials. A cat may become tense inside a laboratory, lose interest in food, or remain focused on an unfamiliar smell. The owner's presence can calm one animal while distracting another. Age, early socialization, health, and personality create further variation. A failed task may reflect discomfort or low motivation, alongside the ability being tested. Home-based experiments have reduced some of these problems. Passive observation can help as well, because the cat is free to behave normally, while cameras record small changes. New technology is making those changes easier to measure. One system called CatFax maps specific feline facial actions. The letters stand for Cat Facial Action Coding System. Researchers can record movements around the ears, eyes, muzzle, and whiskers, instead of relying on a broad impression that the cat looks worried or relaxed. Computer vision can follow facial landmarks frame by frame. A landmark is a repeatable point, such as the corner of an eye or the base of an ear. Automated pain detection systems have reached accuracy above 70% in one video dataset. Another system reached about 66%. Earlier work using still facial landmarks exceeded 77% on a more varied clinical collection. These tools remain early and imperfect. A turned head can hide part of the face. Long fur may cover useful landmarks. Lighting, breed differences, camera angle, and small datasets can reduce accuracy when a system meets unfamiliar cats. Even limited tools can support better veterinary care and more careful observation at home. The practical lesson begins with predictability. Clear routines help a cat estimate when food, quiet time, or human activity will occur. Consistent cues make communication easier to learn. Gradual introductions give the animal time to inspect a new person, room, or object. Voluntary contact allows approach and withdrawal to carry reliable consequences. Punishment, delivered long after an event, creates confusing associations. Forced handling can teach that hands or enclosed spaces are difficult to escape. Subtle warnings deserve attention before tension grows into swatting or biting. An ear turning sideways, a tail beginning to flick, or a body lowering toward the floor can reveal a changing evaluation. The familiar cat nearby is not translating every sentence spoken in the room. Its life still contains a rich network of identities, routines, gestures, emotional signals, remembered locations, and expected outcomes. It watches people, while people gradually learn to watch it. Quiet behavior can hide several stages of recognition and choice. A cat's stillness does not measure how little it understood. Sometimes, after noticing everything that mattered, it simply found no reason to move.